Welcome everyone to iGROW Fit. My name is Maria Plangsangtip and I am one of the psychologists at iGROW. And I'm very happy to be here with you to share an important topic on depression. You know, with all mental health challenges, we realize that there's a lot of complexity that comes with mental health. So I'm very happy today to have someone here, a very special guest today, to share more about her experience with mental health and depression. So please let us welcome Earn and her husband, Joel, today to talk about depression, all right? So let me introduce Earn a little bit first, and Earn, you can let us know if there's anything else I missed out, all right? So Earn is a brand consultant. She's based in Thailand. She was also a singer and actress. She grew up in like the spotlight of Thailand, and there's a lot of challenges and difficulties. And so that's why I'm very happy that Earn is here to share with you. And most importantly, I guess I need to mention this, Earn, that we're also first and foremost friends, childhood friends. And I have seen her grown up and gone through so many different things. So that's why it's even more special today to have you with us. Right. So Earn, anything that we should mention before we start? Any introduction for you and Joel first?
Just to say hi from Bangkok. I guess it's already an afternoon to you. For us, it's still the morning. So hello there from Bangkok. This is my husband, Joe. We discussed and we thought if he joining us might be beneficial at some point as our interview or discussion goes along. Is there anything you want to mention before? No, I'm pretty open to everything. So shoot the questions and I'll try to answer as honestly as I can and as openly as I can, as much as I can.
That's wonderful. All right. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity as well. And I guess today we have quite a number of people joining us. And I guess we have coach, counselors, and a variety of people from the different sectors in Singapore. I can see, I believe we have some who is also dialing in from Indonesia as well. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. And, you know, Earn, so just to confirm, right, you're okay with us asking you any questions about depression and mental health?
Yes, I'm very open to the questions. If there are any questions I don't feel comfortable, I'll just state it right away. So don't be worried. Don't worry. You can just shoot me any questions. Anyone can ask me any questions.
Nice. Okay. So this is the plan. Like the goal today is for us to hear and to learn about depression, perhaps not through the eyes of a psychologist, but through the eyes of Earn. And I guess there will be some similarities and differences of people who, you know, go through this depression and mental health as well. So if you have any questions, all right, for all audience today, if you have any questions, feel free to put into the chat, right? You can just address it to the panelists and we'll see your question. If not, you can put it into the Q&A sector, the box as well. I will be monitoring that and selecting some of the question. As Ernest mentioned, I think this is an open conversation for you to learn about depression, but also please also be mindful as well that, you know, there might be some questions. If it's a little bit uncomfortable, we will let you know, right? So I guess maybe we can just talk. The first question I just wanted to check in with you. This is not the first time you're talking about mental health and depression, right? This is not the first time. And you even came up with, how is it like a support group or a movement in Thailand that's called Rock Forward, which talks about mental health. Can you share with us about why did you start talking about mental health?
Sure. Just to mention a little bit about what Rock Forward is. What Rock Forward is, we don't really know how to call it. It's not an organization. It's not a project. It's just something that I came up with because I feel there's not a lot of information about depression people out there. There are not a lot of people who talk about it from patients' perspective. A lot of things we hear, a lot of information we hear are usually from the psychiatrists, psychologists. So the language that we read, the stuff that we read or hear about are different. So I wanted to share my own experience so other patients feel more connected. Because when I was dealing with depression, I didn't know I was dealing with depression. There are not a lot of people with real experience who talk about it because it's always difficult to talk about it. And since there was no one who shared their experiences, I didn't know that I had it. I didn't know how to cope with it. I didn't know that there's a solution. I didn't know that there's a treatment. I didn't know what to do. So I thought if I could share the information, it would be easier for other patients to acknowledge their own sickness or their own conditions, and it would be faster for them to get the treatment that they need.
Thank you very much. So it sounds like it can be quite tough, right? To be in the situation alone, and what you want to do is just to share more about this particular mental health so that people don't suffer alone, right?
It was very difficult. It was a very difficult path.
Okay. I think I have a whole lot of questions to talk about this difficulty, right? But first off, this loneliness and everything, right? Like, because you didn't know that you were suffering. You didn't know that you were suffering. And in the psychologist perspective in mental health, I usually tell people that, on average, people who experience mental health challenges, right? Sometimes it takes them up to 14 years to get help. And people were like looking at me, and then they don't believe that this is true. And what was it like for you? How long did it take you before you actually get to seek professional help?
That was a long road for me because I never knew I had depression. So I guess it took so much longer time for me. Looking back from when I started to have a professional help from my psychiatrist and my psychologist, I believe I could have had depression for more than 20 years. So probably since I was a teenager, probably since I was 16, 17 years old, or even before that, and I never realized I had it. I realized it. I started to doubt that I may have it about how many years ago that I went to you and said I might have depression? 10 years ago, when we moved to Ashton. About
6 years.
6 years ago, about 6 years ago, when I started to doubt that I might have depression. And then I think about before that, because about 6 years ago, I started to ask for help from Maria. And then I think a few years after that, that's when I really decided to go see a psychiatrist in Thailand. So it took me at least from the day I really started to doubt to the day that I really went to the psychiatrist, it took me about almost 10 years. And before that, it was a pretty long journey for me.
Okay. So that's quite a long time.
Very long time. It took longer time for my sisters because before I went to the psychiatrist, they also didn't acknowledge that they also had depression. So once I went to, my sister kind of thought, but then she saw a psychiatrist that she did not feel connected with. So once I saw my psychiatrist for a year, I introduced her to mine. That's when she also started to have a real treatment. So it took longer time for my sister. So it was a really long time for them.
Okay. So it really takes a long time. And this is something that I often tell people, right? Like, when we have physical symptoms, a stomach ache or anything, it takes us maximum, a week before we get to seek medical help. But when it comes to mental health, even if we're suffering, even there's so many things going on, some people just wait for so long, right? And, you mentioned a few times, right, that, you didn't know that it was mental health. You didn't know. And what was the symptoms like? If what do the people around you say about this? What do they explain it as, or what do you explain all these various things as then, if it's not mental health?
To be honest, no one around me was aware of depression. I was the first one in my very small group of people, except for Maria, who knew what depression was. So I was being viewed as a very sensitive person, that I'm usually very happy and very kind and very fun and very outgoing, which and also I'm also very introvert while I'm very outgoing. So there are two characters within me, and my close friends would know that there's certain wall that people can't cross. Once they cross this wall, once they say the certain things, and then I'm off. And when I'm off, I mean, I just cut them off my relationship, because it was always easier for me to cut off relationship, because I felt it was my safe zone. It's funny how I established my own safe zone. And in my safe zone, there are very few people who I'm comfortable and share things with. And only these people who know I'm emotional when I'm emotional. Other people, I always smile, and they never know. So some people only thought I was angry. Some people thought I was sensitive at times, and I don't think anyone understood why I was so sensitive about certain things. So it was difficult for me too, because I didn't know why I was sensitive to certain things, and I just thought I was weird. This word is being used a lot when people around me describe me. I was weird. I was different. Different was actually a positive word, but I was weird. I was too sensitive. I was too angry at things. I was too pessimistic. So that goes for the words that I received for being who I am or who I was, because they didn't know that I had depression, and I didn't know I had depression.
So somewhere it's like because you are an artist, so people think that, oh, you are an artist, so you have the right to be sensitive.
Yeah, that's also strange, because I had an art degree and work in branding. It's associated with design. I used to be a singer, so people thought, well, you're sensitive because you're an artist. so I think I might have an excuse a little bit, because I'm an artist, so people allow me to be a little bit more sensitive than other people. But yeah, it was difficult. Like, even my husband, who was with me, there were times when we fought. Of course, we were a couple. When there were times when we fought, and I cried so much. And there was once he told me, he said, I understand that you're sad, but I don't understand why it's so deep. So that's what happened.
How would you describe this deep sadness for you? What is it like to experience that emotion so deep? I'm assuming that it's just different from the regular sadness that people feel. And I don't know if this is even possible to put it into words, but can you just try to explain to us?
I started to take the treatment to get help from professional help 4 years ago. So since then, I started to see the difference between the sadness after the treatment and before the treatment. So I think I can just I would just try to portray the differences between the two periods of my life. Now I think I'm more on the normal side, regular side of psychological wise of the people. When I'm sad, I can still get sad very often, just like other people. But when I'm sad, it's usually traceable. We know what happened. And there are a lot of times that I see or hear something and it hits me and I can let it go. It hits me, I'm sad, I cry now, I can stop and I can let it go. Before the treatment, it felt like I was sunken in a black hole. I felt I was always on the cliff, and I didn't know when I took the wrong step and I fell in the sinkhole, and I just didn't know how to recover, how to feel better. And everything I heard when I was in that sinkhole was hurtful. Everything people said, or everything I saw, or every thoughts that came to my mind always came back to hurt me. For example, if he says something that is very neutral, now I'm okay. But when I was in the when I was in the sinkhole, when I was in the black hole, everything was so hurtful, because when he said, I didn't feel that, I didn't mean it. Now I would understand, okay, he didn't mean it. When I was there, I was like, of course you didn't mean it, because you don't care. Because I'm not important enough. So it was always on me. I'm not good enough. I don't worth your attention. I'm not good enough. No one loves me. I'm alone. I don't worth love. And all those thoughts. And then eventually, I have to mention this, that I was very suicidal. So every thought that came to me would lead to the solution. And this solution is to, I don't want to say kill myself, because a lot of times that thought didn't enter my mind. It was just, the solution is to be gone. And be gone could range from be gone from the room, be gone from this person's presence, or be gone from the world. So it's the same tension, is the same idea. It's just the heaviness of the feelings or emotions at the time.
So, I mean, if I can just summarize a little bit. So the feelings is, in a way, I really love the description of the black hole, because it's almost like, you're in this hole, it's dark, and then everything gets amplified there. The feelings, the experience, and everything. And I guess being in the black hole also means that you are alone. Having this feeling or thinking that nobody understands you and nobody is able to come down and help you, even if there are people.
Yes.
It's just difficult to
and it's always difficult because it's always difficult to explain how we feel, because in the bottom of my mind, I felt, even if I say it, even if I explain it, you would not understand, because you haven't been there, because you are not in my place, so you would never understand. And if I say anything that's really on my mind, not only you would not understand, but you would also discriminate me, you would also misunderstand me, you would also think of me badly. So I better not shut up and not say anything. And when I don't say anything, when people with depression feel like they can't talk, it's worse.
It's as you're explaining this, it seems like this black hole, it's a bad place, but yet it's, in a way, it gives that somehow it's a comfort that even if there's a ladder at that moment, that like, hey, Earn, come up, hey, you need to come up and everything. It's better to just be in there, and then by being alone, that hole becomes deeper and deeper. It becomes even harder to get out of. So, based on the symptoms, right? Maybe, just to give everyone a context of what are some of the symptoms of depression, we usually say that depressions come in various symptoms, including behavioral, cognitive, emotional, and physical as well, right? As you can see here, a lot of the things that we're discussing today is more of the cognitive part, the thoughts, the negative thoughts that really can, shut everyone down, because the main thoughts that you seems to have is like, oh, nobody wants me, I'm not good enough, and all these things, right? Like a negative things. Even if Joe said something neutral, right? The way that our brain interprets it becomes negative. So that would be more of the cognitive. Emotional, I guess you already mentioned extreme, a lot of this extreme emotions, the sadness, feeling really in the dark place. And I want to check in with the physical and behavioral part. Would
Mhm.
people know that you have, like, did it affect your eating, your sleeping, or anything at all?
I actually, if you open the textbook of what depression patient is, I actually have pretty much everything, but it was very good at covering it up. So even people around me, even people close to me, even in our group, even people in our group, we have about 5 or 6 people in our very close group of friends, didn't know that I had depression, but they know that I was sensitive, but no one knew how bad it was, or what extent did it go to. Only my husband really knew, how when I was dealing with it, how bad it was. So I was very good at covering it. When I went outside, I always laughed. I always teased people. Um, I was, people thought I am very outgoing because I treat everybody like very, very lively. I don't know. It's just, I laugh a lot. I laughed a lot. I still do, but I laughed a lot. And when something hit me, I just wait, and I went back home and I cried.
Hmm. Yeah, I do have to say that I didn't know that you were suffering for this long as well as a friend, knowing you for, should I even say 20 years or more? That is it? Yeah, right. So
Yeah.
this is something that I didn't even know. And you covered it very well. And then it's almost impossible for people, even those who are close to you, to find out. And that's why this depression is, I don't know, I guess it's very tough. And then that's why we need to have more conversation about it today. And so, Joe, you have been on the sideline for a while. I just want to check in with you, right? It must be quite tough for you as well, seeing Earn having having to go through this, right? And I'm pretty sure, we're laughing about it now because it's more in control, more manageable now. But back then, right, if Earn was like, you mentioned, you were in a dark place, whatever you mention, it becomes, wow, an attack on her. And there's also a bit of that wishing that she's no longer there. How did it affect you, like your relationship?
Yeah, for the relationship, I think it's quite tough. Um, because by that time, when we start to have a relationship, I know that she is sensitive, and I know that there's some part that I cannot touch, and something that I cannot talk about. But
I have to mention that we have been together for 15 years, so that's long before I knew I had depression.
yeah,
So he's been through a lot. I'm
so
sorry.
like back in the beginning of the relationship, like around 15 years ago, around 10 years ago, we didn't know that what is depression, and we didn't know what she is going through, and what is in her mind that when she is in a sad state. So I say something not right that to the depression person, like, what's wrong with you? This is always a very sensitive word, that what's wrong with you, because I really don't understand that, like, a few minutes ago it's still okay, it's still good, and I can talk something like this, but just another few minutes is like it just flipped. and and so I don't understand, and I just say, like, what's wrong with you? And she going deeper into her black hole. This very sensitive.
There are actually usually stages of my emotions too, when a long time ago. And we talked about this a lot because we tried to find a way to cope with me when I was at this. This is long before we had depression. The good thing about us is we communicate a lot. So after I came out of the hole, after the episode, I felt better. We would sit down and talk about what happened and how we can cope with it with it the next time. A lot of times I just said, when that happens, forget about everything else and just hug me and say I love you, and that's all you need to do. And usually when this happened, I would shut myself in the restroom, bathroom, or in a very dark room somewhere. So I would lock myself in and I would not let him in. But he would always follow me, and he would, before I didn't lock the room, and he would open the door, and then we would have this very bad conversation. So later on, I locked the room. He would knock the door, and I would always ask, "Are you really sure you're ready?" And if he said, "I think I am," a lot of times he's just very straightforward. He said, "No, I'm not, but I'm here." So when I'm ready, I would just open the door, and that's when things would either heat up or calm down. But that's usually the steps we go. And I said there are steps. There will be when I start to quiet down because I don't know what to say. And if he doesn't stop, it would reach the point when the volcano would just explode. So we tried a lot of times to not get to that point, because once I get to that point, I could not stop, and we both know I could not stop.
Yeah. So how it affects the relationship,
Really difficult.
it's quite difficult, but we try, because we don't know what is going on with us and with our relationship and with her, and also I think it's good to have the conversation after we have the episode. So most of the time, I think to myself that because the guy is stupid, so so you can just tell me that what should I do with your stage, with your episode, so I can treat you right. So
There were a lot of times that we went to the wrong direction. For example, usually he used to say this in some of my depression seminars. Normal people would think there should be solutions to things, right? And before, when we first met, when we first couple, and when I started to show him this side of myself, the depression side, he used to hug me and he used to tell me he loved me. That's how I know this helped. But then later on, this happened again. I became emotional again. He didn't know how to deal with it because he said, last time I did this and this happened again. So he started to change the ways to cope with me. And so it took us a pretty rough road to finally find a way to settle with this.
Yeah, the thing is, people think that
if it didn't, if
there should be a solution.
Yeah.
There should be a solution of what's going on, and we don't want to have this bad conversation going on. So, like this week we have this conversation, another week we have this conversation again, and it's quite bad. So there should be some solution. So I think most of the time people think that there's a solution, and same to me. I'm a person who want to solve the problem, but actually we have to accept that it's not the problem. It's just the problem. It's just what happened. So in the beginning that I saw her hurt herself, like in the first time, she smacked her head with the wall. Can I say this?
Yes, of course.
She smacked her head with the wall, and I'm really shocked. So I
didn't remember this incident until he started to talk about it a few years ago.
Because she called me that I'm really in a bad situation. I need you to be here. So I take a taxi, and then I go to her apartment, and I saw her smack her head to the wall. And so by that time I used my hand to block her head, and then I hug her, so she is gradually stopped, and she's getting better, and I let go. So and then it's so everything is just fine, and it seemed like nothing happened. And then next week, I think around 4 or 5 days, it happens again, and I think I try to do the same thing again. And there's a saying that if you solve the problem with the same solution and it didn't work, you're stupid. So you're doing something wrong. So I changed the way to cope, to deal with her. So I try to ask the question like, what's wrong with you? So
a lot of times it was very difficult for him too because of the emotions and everything. So he would try to say things to shock me. So I stopped. So I'm sorry to say this. So it's easier on his part. And this is a lot of times, a lot of people do this because a lot of people thought once it stopped, it's done, which is not very true in people with depression, because there was once that he didn't know how to stop me. So he said, let's get a divorce. So I really stopped, but that stuck with me even until today. So every time we had a really bad fight, that came up because I was very secure with him until the day he said, let's get a divorce, and I never felt secure again. So for him at that time, he felt it was the right solution because what he should do was to stop me from going any further by any, just anything that would stop me. And so it was difficult because he didn't have tools and I didn't know what to do. I could not control myself, and I did not know how to help him. And it's always more difficult when we know that he was struggling because of me. Once we get to that emotional point, I'm hurt. He sees that I'm hurt. He's hurt. I'm angry at myself. He's also angry that I'm angry at myself. So it's just, it's just up.
The complexity of this, right? Like, and thanks so much for sharing this, like, the behind the scene, like the relationship, because this is really tough. We have come across a lot of people who suffer from mental health, and then in the end, people don't understand, or it's just very difficult, and then it affects their relationship. And I guess, like, if I were to pick a word to describe both of you in that particular moment, I guess it's also helpless. Right, helpless in a sense where hopeless and helpless, right? That you don't really know how to manage that emotion, and then Joe is there like trying his best to help, but then you also don't really know what to do. But I think I picked out a few things that was really good, that was helpful, because, well, you never gave up, right? Joe never gave up. Having patience is also the key. And the other thing is how another point that's really crucial is how he always repeat himself that, hey, he loves you, and he loves you. I think that's something that is just providing assurance seem to be working. But what's not working is sometimes like finding that solution, right? Like, hey, do this, because sometimes at that particular point, it may not be helpful at that point. And so rather than solution focus at times, perhaps then it's about really providing that support, no, letting the person know that, hey, you're in the hole, but I'm here for you.
Another very good thing that I think we did that helped our relationship a lot is because we communicate a lot. So once we are there, once I have the episode, once we're in the black hole, we could not really communicate. So once it's okay, we every time we sat down and we talk about what happened. So I think this has been very helpful, not just dealing with depression, but also with our relationship.
Many times that I did something wrong is that I trying to.
You didn't do anything wrong.
I trying to. I'm not listening. This is very difficult. Listening is very difficult. Because when she was getting better and she is trying to explain and express her feeling. Most of the time I think that, hey, I didn't do that. I didn't mean to do that. And I'm trying to cover myself up with some excuse that I didn't mean to do this. And she asked me back that, are you really listening? Because most of the time, what you need to do is just listen. And okay, maybe you didn't mean that, or you didn't want to hurt her, but yeah, she's being heard by that time. So just listen.
So really, it's the communication that's also important. I guess communication is for any relationship, that's important, and especially even more important when mental health is involved, right? So I just want to check in, right? Because this is a cycle that you had to go through for many years, and I can sense a lot of love between the two of you and the patients and everything. You're trying and trying to just tune in and to work with this. At which point do you realize, right, that hey, you need to seek professional help? At which point, like, what's the turning point? Because seeking professional help can be very scary, right? Going to a stranger, getting to tell someone about your entire life that you have never shared with before. And so can you tell me a little bit, share with us about that particular turning point? Was there a turning point, and where and how did you seek the professional help for you?
I will have to tell the stories that were unfolded along the way. I think the first time I started to hear about depression and doubted about it, that I might have it, it was many years ago. I was cleaning my house and the TV was on, and on the TV, I think the Thai Ministry of Health was started to raise concern about mental health, and they mentioned about depression, and they mentioned about this 9 symptoms. Thai Ministry of Health, they issued the 9 symptoms of depression that we can do the checklist. And the TV personnel went through all this 9 symptoms. And I was cleaning the house, I remember very clearly. I was cleaning the house and they said, and they talked about depression. And I was like, what depression? The first symptom checked, the second symptom checked, until I think the only one I didn't have was the 7th or the 8th symptom. And when it went to the 9th, which is to plan to suicide or wanted to or is suicidal, that's when I kind of thought this might be me. But I was still in denial mode, because the difficult thing about mental health is that your symptoms are emotions. And when your symptoms are emotions, it's not like you have headache or stomach ache. You would try to think, I'm not sick. Other people have this too. So let's find other ways to cope with it. Maybe I'm weak. Maybe I'm just too sensitive, but it's not that I'm sick. To call yourself sick or to accept that you are sick, the word sick itself means weak. And so when you associate the word mental health with being crazy, with being sick, it's just all negative words. So everybody that I talked to was always have gone through this denial stage because it was difficult. And so later on, I was very suicidal when I was a teenager because of things I went through, I'd gone through with my family. And then I thought it was better, and then something happened or something did not happen, but then the suicidal mode came back to my life. And it was to the time that I felt I needed help, because at first I thought it was gone. But once it came back, I thought this is not good. And that's when I wrote to Maria, or call you or something, I don't remember, that this is happening. What should I do? Because I know she's a psychologist and she's a very close friend, so I trust her enough. I trusted her. And I remember she wrote in the letter, she said, I'm too close to you. You need a professional help. But in case of an emergency, if you want to hurt yourself and you want to kill yourself, this is what I want you to do now. And she told me to write a contract to myself And she told me words by words that I had to write down. And in the contract, it said, in times I feel like I want to hurt myself, in times I want to kill myself, I have this person, and she told me to write down the names. And she said, and I acknowledge that I have these people that I can go to, and these people love me, and I have this. And she said, in the end, she said, sign it. And I didn't think it would work because I thought it's the contract to myself. It's not official. It's just a paper. But it did really help because for the first time I felt I have this people that I care. And if I die, it would affect them. It was the first time that I saw it physically. Although it just words on the paper, it was physical for the first time that I have these people. So I remember after that, a few weeks ago, no, not a few weeks ago, a few weeks after or something, we went for a dinner, this group of friends, and I said I needed to talk. And so we went back to our condo, and then we sat down, and then I told my friends that this is where I am. And since your names are in the contract, I felt it was only fair if I tell you this. But still, I didn't seek professional help because it was scary. Maria gave me the names of the places that I could go, but it was scary because the idea of having to take medication for mental health, it was, I don't know, it was strange. It was scary.
I think what is why it's difficult to go to seek for professional help is because it's different from the physical sickness that you can see the wound. You can see the wound. You can see the bleeding. You can see the physical symptoms.
You can also get the sympathy from other people.
Yes.
Not with mental health.
If you have the wound on your knees or on your ankle or something, you can see the bleeding and oh, you are sick. You need to see the doctor. But it's the mental wound that you cannot see it. You cannot see the bleeding, but actually it's bleeding inside.
And I feel, or at least I felt this way. If once I get professional help, once I go into the mad hospital, then it's embedded that I'm mad, then I'll get judged. So the turning point was, but I knew that I kind of need help, but I still denial. I was in still denial until I started a company. And there was
I need to add in that, I do remember this, that, the contract was, as you're talking about it, it makes me feel a bit emotional as well, because I knew that was a very scary point. And knowing that we are not in the same country and everything, right? And for you to write that contract, that really means a lot. And for you to feel that, hey, it helped you. And I also remember though that, I gave you a list of names to contact. I think it took another year or so, right, before you actually contacted anyone. So that's another extra year there. And I guess I just want, because I'm also mindful of the time as well, and I really want to get as much as information, right? And can you just share as well, like, this because it seems like this is something that we all battle with around Asia, I would say. People always have this thing that, oh, if you go to the psychiatrist or psychologist, you must be crazy. You must be mad and everything. And was there anything that can help you to overcome that?
Not really. What just happened was I opened a company and I felt I had a lot of responsibility. And there was a day that I had an episode, and all this time, when I had the episodes, probably at night, usually at night, no matter how late it was, in the morning I would get up at the time I should get up. I would put on a lot of makeup to cover my eyes, and I just went to work because I'm very responsible when it came to work. But that very day, it was too difficult for me, and I had to cancel all the meetings. And I felt I had employees I had to take care. I have clients that I have to take care. So if this continue, I would not be able to take care of anyone. So I think it was the point I felt it really affected work and affected everyone. So that's when I said, it doesn't matter what people say about me. It doesn't matter if people judge me. I could be crazy, and that's okay. And that's when I stepped into the psychiatrist's office So it had to get to the point where I thought this is not okay anymore. For me, it was work. So I think it's different for different people.
I guess the barrier as well, right? We talked about one would be what society think, right?
Yeah.
And then there's also part of that denial part as well, like, hey, is it really me? Before we move forward to really seeking help. And what I'm also hearing is Joe is there to like, hey, support you, and then to make sure that, hey, no matter what, you're moving forward, you're trying to get that help and having that patience. And this is something that, I hear with a lot of people as well, a lot of families and friends who do check in with me and say like, hey, how do I get get someone to seek help, because we know that the person needs help and everything. And I guess what I'm hearing is sometimes it's also patience as well, right?
It's a lot of times patience. A lot of people ask me this too, and I said telling them directly doesn't help, because telling them directly, it means you're telling them you have a problem. Let's find a solution. And
Nobody
the problem
likes to hear that.
So
Nobody wants to
it's
be the
not very
problem.
helpful that way. What happened to me is I started to get the awareness that I might have this because of the media. So, and I learned this from working with depression patients and working with people who dealt with depression patients, that a lot of time you just need to make them feel that they acknowledge this naturally by themselves. So put the books with information about depression or mental health around, watch a documentary, watch an interview near them. You see what I'm saying? Like put them in the environment where they can get the information naturally, not by forcing. And once they have this in their mind, then when most of the patients I talk to, all of the patients I talk to, they know that they're different and they know they have a problem. They just didn't know what it was. So just giving them the opportunity to understand that there might be a name to what you have, and there might be a treatment to what you have, and give them time to work at their own pacing. It's really important.
So I think most of the patient knows that they have a problem. Most of them know that they have some problem. They are different, and but they don't want people they loved or they care to confirm that you are the problem. Yes, and most of the time you might, it's a good idea to seek the information, and sometimes, most of the time they don't want to, the people they love to see themselves as a burden of their life, because they already feel that I'm your burden.
That's one thing that could do. Another thing is there's a person very close to me. He's also started to see a psychiatrist, but it's a different journey, because for this person, I sat down with him and talked to him that it started to affect. And then you saw me go through this journey. It was very difficult. I didn't want you to go through that journey. And when he said yes, I booked the psychiatrist. So it's a different journey. So it's a journey that I think it also depends on the patient. It also depends on the situations. So there could be, but that person, one good thing about that person is he already knew that there is mental health. So it was easier to talk to him.
Yeah, I guess it's a different stages of readiness that the person is in as well, right? And I have a few more questions, and then for those who are still following us, I know that we have like limited time left as well. If you have any questions, feel free to keep put it into the chat or the Q&A, and then I'll be asking these questions for you. But now, Earn, like you have been seeing psychiatrists, behavioral therapists, psychologists for how long now?
4 years.
4 years. Okay. And you look really good today.
I always do.
and so maybe people here might be like, wondering then, like, are you finally cured of depression? Are you still battling with it? Where are you now?
I still take a medication, but it's a lot less than before. I used to take 4 different medications. Now it's down to 1. But my psychiatrist and I, we had tried to stop. So we lessened the dose. There was a time that it was less than now, but it didn't work. So we both learned that it's not the time yet. So we came back to where we are now. So am I still battling with it? I think I am, but it's not disturbing my life. It's not a big deal anymore. What I do is just I go to a follow-up every 2 or 3 months and I take medication every day. So for me, it doesn't feel like I'm battling with it now.
I guess now, we started off talking about, the hole engulfing you and you're inside the hole. Now you're able to control the hole. Can I say that? You're in a way, it's the
Not
hole.
all the time, not all the time, but I was just in the black hole recently, but it was so much easier to get out. It was not more than half an hour, right? Which
less than half an hour.
Less than half an hour, like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, which is very different from before. Before it took hours, it took 2 or 3 hours sometimes.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing this, right? And if I guess because we have psychologists, counselors, coach, and a few people who are here, right? And I just want to wrap up and say and just check in, and maybe you can give us some recommendations as well. Like, what do you want? Like, what would be helpful? Like, suppose if your friends are battling with depression, what are some of the things that they should do more of, like in terms of words or actions, like in friends and family?
I don't want to put it that way. I don't want to require people to feel like they have a duty, but then if they encounter the situation, what would really help is to stop and listen. Listening is difficult. People thought listening is just to listen, but no, listening is difficult because a lot of people feel they have to respond when somebody's talking. Otherwise, they don't know that you're talking to them. But to people with depression or maybe other mental health, I'm not sure, but to people with depression, a lot of times listening means being there by their side, let them talk, ask them questions, don't give them solutions, right? Another, this is something I got from a random friend whom I've never talked to since the graduation of high school in 2002. I think there was that time that I was battling it very badly and it slipped out on my social media. So there was a friend from my high school who never talked to me. He sent me a message. He said, just letting you know that I'm here. And that really helped. That felt that someone really understood. It was better than someone asking me, how are you? It was better than someone telling me, you should seek this doctor, you should see that, you should do this. Just that very short message really helped. Another thing is this worked for the people who I encounter. It's difficult for patients if they don't know that they have depression, and a lot of patients are in denial. So it's always good when there are other patients out there sharing their experiences. A lot of family members told me that they could get their moms or their sisters to see a psychiatrist because they show them my messages that I wrote on Facebook, or my video that I went to an interview, or he could get one of his friends to see a doctor because he showed her my documentary. Because when you actually compare your situation to the people who openly say they have depression, it's when you can't deny anymore because your situations, your symptoms are too similar. So that also helped. I also acknowledged that I had depression because I read social posts from one of my friends who had depression, and she said openly. And that's when I started to compare my situations to hers. I'm sorry, you're speaking to me.
Sorry. Any final words for those who might have some symptoms of depression? Any words for them to just end off?
Before I say that, I would say thank you first for Maria and for everyone who's here, because only if you care, that's why you're here. So for the depression patient community, that means a lot already that someone is trying to understand us, and someone is trying to help, and someone's trying to get to the inside so they can deal with it the right way. So thank you very much. That's the first thing I want to put out. For the patients, you're not alone. And if you think you're alone, I understand, and it's okay. And it's okay to be hurtful. It's okay to say that you're hurt. It's okay to not love people everybody tell you should love. It's okay to not feel the way everybody tells you should feel. It's okay to have a different path everybody said you should have. And it's okay. And one day it will pass, and there's a way to go through it, and you don't need to go through it alone.
Thank you very much, Earn, for that assurance as well, and a very good message to those who are battling depression out there, right? So once again, thank you so much for spending an hour with me and everyone here, and with our community of iGROW Fit. And hopefully we can now are more equipped and to understand what is depression and how to support the people around us. And for those of you who are interested, and then, Erin mentioned about like questionnaires and assessment, I just want to let you know as well, in Singapore, we do have a great website. It's called mindline.sg. This is handled and monitored by the Health Promotion Board of Singapore, along with other ministries. And you can, there's actually a good short assessments for you to just understand your own emotions better. You can go to mindline.sg if you need more information. And of course, if you have any other questions, feel free to contact iGROW at igrowfit.com for more information. Right. For today, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here too. Thank you.
Thank you.